In the name of God, who is infinite love, beloved, and love overflowing. Merry Christmas. We're finally here. As you know, I always begin my sermons to the honor of and in the name of God, who is infinite love. And tonight we're celebrating that infinite love coming to us. First, in the birth of the Christ child in Bethlehem, but also welling up from inside of us, yet permeating the entire universe. In some way, shape, or form, infinite love overflowed in the moment of creation and spread all through creation. But if that was not enough, infinite love then joined itself to its own creation in human form, particularly in the person and work of Jesus of Nazareth. That is the joy of Christmas, the birth of Emmanuel, God with us, not, as some might believe, God far away and detached from us. We are, in fact, not separated from our Creator. That infinite love energy, who, by the way, is not a harsh taskmaster, as some proclaim, is interested solely that God's dream of love and justice will spread through us like a wildfire over the whole planet. One of my favorite mystics is a man named Bede Griffiths, who was a British Roman Catholic priest and monk who moved to India to be a part of an interspiritual ashram. In other words, there were people living there who were of many different faiths. And there he became a great teacher about the connections between Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism, and other religions. Admittedly, his books are very dense, but I thought I would share just one of his quotes about the birth of God in Jesus Christ. He said, "The incarnation, when understood in its full depth, is the point at which the absolute, the infinite, unconditional reality," these are all names for God, "breaks through into the world of time and space, of matter and history. It is the center to which the whole cosmic order is moving and from which it receives its meaning. In Jesus the Christ," because we all know by now, right, Christ was not Jesus's last name. We don't want to refer to Jesus as Mr. Christ, right? In Jesus the Christ, the center of human nature and the center of divine nature come together, coincide. He is the meeting point of time and eternity, the point where the circle of time touches the circle of eternity, the still point of the turning world. I just love the way he puts it. It sounds almost Celtic. So what we're celebrating tonight is an event that has happened and yet in another way continues to happen through us. As Meister Eckhart said in his day and age, and I tend to quote this every year at Christmas, I know, but it's so good. He said, "What good is it to me that Mary gave birth to the Son of God 1400 years ago, and I do not also give birth to the Son of God in my time and in my culture? We are all meant to be mothers of God. God is always needing to be born." Needless to say, he really ticked off the church officials. That's why I like him, right? Humanity has been given all the capabilities, the tools, the consciousness ready to expand within and without to bring the kingdom or the reign of God in the form of love and compassion and justice. We worship a supportive and loving God, not a finger-waving God, as some would say, but one who strengthens us day by day to meet the everyday challenges we go through. Any earthly, ego-centered religious or political leader or self-esteem that harms us in some way, God is willing to be right by our side and strengthen us to meet that challenge. Indeed, it's also the birth of our capacity for God in the form of awe and wonder, which I think is so important to keep us from losing hope in the midst of petty tyrants and injustices and hateful people that still cross our path. Every time some blowhard leader opens his mouth, we have the opportunity to look to this little child in Bethlehem and remember that God surrounds us and supports those who have been held back or totally marginalized by the powerful. That's why the birth of Jesus is good news, not necessarily for the rich, but for the poor, those who are in mourning, the merciful, and those who have been persecuted or shoved to the edge of society. Through the beauty of the earth and the beauty of care between two people, we remember that no matter how big the sand castles some folks build, the ocean waves of God's love and desire for justice just keep rolling in, washing away all the power-centered, self-made sand castles and giving the world a fresh new start. What I'm trying to say is that empires come and go, but the love and justice of God remains. No petty leader can hold back the sea of God's love and justice forever. So there's always hope. We need only be willing instruments of God's love to those in need. So yes, eternal hope was born this day in the city of David, who is Christ the Lord, just as the angels said. And this eternal hope is for all people, not just for some small religious clique of people who have memorized certain scripture passages to feel special, but for all people, regardless of even their religion, regardless of their economic status, their ethnicity, their gender preference, or who they love. God, who is divine love, came for all people in Jesus of Nazareth, and now through us. Well, some of us may ask why a divine energy, the creator of the universe, would even bother working personally in a human life. And let's face it, I've wondered the same thing too. How is this even possible? Why is it that divine love works so personally in the lives of so many people, both inside and outside of the church? Why is it that so many people like myself have experienced an inexplicable movement in their life by something so much greater than the self? The quick, pithy answer is so that all people might be saved. And if you have problems with that word saved, how about becoming whole? I mean, that's what being saved is, isn't it? It's about becoming whole by a change of heart, a change of behavior in the grace of God. But I would also add that this is simply the fact that we've all had these different experiences of God. It is simply the divine, self-giving nature of God. The term for this self-giving is called kenosis. Used to be years ago when we used tokens for the New York subway. We would say that and a token will get you on the subway. Now they use cards, but it means, kenosis means that it's God's very nature continually to pour out its divine love, not wrath. So many Christians have given God a bad name, honest to goodness. God is divine love, continually pouring himself out, pouring herself out throughout the universe. That's why we're celebrating tonight, the divine outpouring of love to all creation, so that we too might pass on a blessing to humanity. So I want to end with a poem from a woman named Angie Sullins. It may be that Christmas Eve is a little bit hard to take for some. Maybe this will help. If Jesus slipped through the silver veil of December, that thin place where breath becomes prayer and snow becomes silence, the stars would tremble with remembering. He'd walk barefoot across the frost-bitten hours, unbothered by the cold, for he carries inside him the original hearth fire, the one that lit galaxies before shepherds ever looked up. He would listen first to the thrum beneath the world, to the hymns kept hostage in the stones, to the hush of angels hovering over rooftops like forgotten songs. At the edges of midnight, he would stand among the evergreen spells and the candle-lit altars, smiling at our attempts to summon awe. Tinsel like captured stardust, carols like soft incantations, cookies shaped like childhood. He'd bless them all, for they are attempts at wonder. And wonder, he knows, is the doorway to the divine. He'd nod warmly at the bows and gifts, knowing that sometimes we must wrap mystery in red paper just to trust it again. He'd pour himself out like holy wine through the deeper part of the feast, the half-buried places where grief pads softly like a winter fox, the empty chairs, the silent rooms, the stories we don't tell at the table because they taste of snow and endings. This is where he'd kneel in the frost of unsaid things. He'd stretch a hand into the shimmering dark, and every creature, feathered, furred, forgotten, would feel the shift, the ancient remembering, the pulse of love, older than Bethlehem, older than language, older than the first dawn. And if you were still enough, quiet enough, willing enough to let the world fall from your shoulders like an old worn out cloak, you might hear God say, Christmas was never about my birth. It was always about yours. The birth of your wonder, the birth of your courage, the birth of your unshakable knowing that you too are made of light. Even in the lowliest stable, even in the darkest night, you too are made of light. Merry Christmas.